Welcome back to the Oz Cro Soccer Show. We've just been unmuted. I think people are getting sick of my husky voice, Josipe. I might have to give it up after a while.
No, mate. Bit of honey.
Yeah, bit of honey, bit of mad. But we've got our next guest on, and it is an absolute pleasure to have Damien Bresic on. Football Queensland South-East Queensland Zone General Manager. Damien, welcome to the Oz Cro Soccer Show.
Gentlemen, thank you. And thanks for the hype. I certainly hope I can live up to it.
No worry. We know you can, mate. That's all right. Thanks for joining us, mate.
Pleasure.
Hey, look, mate. I was going to say, before we get into questions about what the GM of Football Queensland South-East gets up to, it was remiss of us not to get around to the topic of Gold Coast and Brisbane's Johnny Message Cup this coming week and the following. Give us a quick background on that.
Look, it was started most probably, a good 15, 20 years ago, just as the Crow Club Challenge between Gold Coast Knights and Brisbane Knights, or Rockley as they were called then, when we both played in the sort of the same level. And it was just a home and away hit out where we could see each other, eat some chavapi and drink some rakia and get on with our seasons. And then unfortunately, actually at one of the games, Johnny Message, who was one of the founding fathers of Rockley and a stalwart up here and a Hall of Fame member with Sabres, unfortunately passed away or lost his battle with illness. And then we just decided there and then that from now on it would just be called the Johnny Message Cup. So that's where it was born. Unfortunately, since the Gold Coast Knights went to the NPL, their level had sort of risen a little bit higher. So now they do it more of the over 35s boys get together and have a bit of a hit out and a drink. So it's maybe come down a level or two, but it's still a good night out. So tomorrow night at the Croatian Club on the Gold Coast, and then a couple of weeks back up at Rockley.
I think some of the other 35s were warming up last night during the game against Penn Power. There was about a half a dozen of them sampling some of the liquid gold. So
yeah, I was going to ask, what sort of warm up was it, Joe?
It was all liquid, nothing else.
Yeah.
It gets very hot in Queensland. I can imagine. Yeah, Damien. Now, now let's talk about your involvement in football. And prior to getting involved at Football Gold Coast, you were for many years president at the Gold Coast Knights. You were also heavily involved in the club in other roles as well.
Yep.
When you first got involved at Gold Coast Knights at the time, did you think that one day you'd be sort of, working full time in football? Good question. What transpired that changed your mind?
Look, the short answer to your original thing was no, because it was always deemed as the enemy. And it was like, I don't want to jump to the dark side. But, I mean, I was president at the Knights for about 19 years, I think. And prior to that, I had a number of other roles within the committee. So as my time was coming to an end, I guess, I still wanted to be involved a little bit with soccer. And I went on the board of Football Gold Coast as the vice chair for a number of years. I sat on their disciplinary committee, then I was the chair of the disciplinary committee, and just things evolved, I guess. And then while I was sitting on the board at one stage, our then CEO resigned. They asked me to take a caretaker role. And then when we evaluated how the role should look, I was offered the position full time. And I suppose 11 years later, I can't say I'm still there, but the transition happened with Football Queensland, so I'm still in a similar role, maybe a little bit more elevated. But yeah, that's a very short story.
You've got a massive catchment area to look after.
Yes.
How many numbers do you look after?
Metro or Football Brisbane's average about 30,000 registered players. The Gold Coast is about 9 and Toowoomba's about 7. So the best part of 40,000 players.
Yeah.
100 clubs. or maybe a bit more than 100. Brisbane's got 80. We've got 26 down here, and there's about 20 there. So about 120 clubs. So yeah, it's interesting. But I've only been in this role since November the 1st. So it's still taking a little bit of time to get used to, but it's okay.
And how much staff do you have under you or working sort of with you? And what sort of roles and things like that? Is it competitions? Is it administration? Is it marketing? What sort of roles are you looking after?
Yeah, all that. So the way Football Queensland works, I mean, Football Queensland itself has got 80 staff or thereabouts. So with the different levels. So they've gone, the best way I can explain it, I guess, it's almost the AFL model where everything's centralised now. Football Queensland we've got a centralised competitions base, centralised refereeing base, centralised coach and TD space, and centralised marketing. So all those people I've got resource to, and we're assigned to different areas, and I've got my teams, but eventually, inevitably, they all fall under that one centralised pool. So, I mean, I've got 80 staff to call on if I need it, but we do have our own little teams and things like that are specific to areas that I deal with. So,
and I guess what else is specific to Queensland is the vast distances. You're telling me off air that tomorrow you have to get in the car and drive. Is it 3-4 hours or something like that?
Yeah, I've got a meeting with the clubs in Stanthorpe, so it's about 3.5 hour drive. So 12 o'clock meeting.
Nice wine out there. Make sure you bring back something.
Yeah, apparently, Sheila, they keep telling me that, but I'll be there and straight back, unfortunately. So maybe next time I'll make it a Friday meeting and you can join me.
You can take Susie with you, make a weekend.
Okay, no worries.
Good stuff. Oh, yeah, look, I'm glad, Tunchi, mentioned like the different personnel and different departments that would be working with you, and you highlighted on that. One of the main reasons I wanted to bring up a conversation with yourself today is we don't seem to have that cut through from the Croatian community to enter these sorts of roles in these environments. So if we look at yourself in this position, maybe JD as the GM football operations at Victory. Other than that, we see many at coaching level. We see many at that sort of video analysis kind of situation, but in that administration level, we don't see it. In your travels, have you bumped into anyone else from the Crow community that is in these similar roles, whether it be in Queensland or interstate?
Yeah, only Tonchi at one of the conferences I attended in Victoria when he had his FFV shirt on. But yeah, no, look, and it was interesting listening to John earlier where he was saying that one of their committee members is the secretary of the association. So there's one part, but no, like I said earlier, it was almost a taboo for us for some strange reason. We seem to be a very proud nation that almost want to do things our own way. And we almost, I don't know, not that we snub authority, but we want to challenge authority. And one of my biggest challenges, I guess, at the beginning was even the resentment or the perceived resentment I sort of got even from our people, where I've gone to the dark side and, pissing us his door and it's like, it was that sort of mentality where I'm not a part of them anymore. But, little did I know, it's easier to, the old Trojan horse type scenario, it's easier to achieve something from the inside than it is from the outside looking in. And I don't know the answer, Gila, because there's a lot of smart, educated people. And if you look at our clubs, our clubs are most probably some of the best run clubs in Australia collectively, but then we can't seem to get that next step. And it was never a goal of mine, I must admit, and I landed into it by accident, but I certainly haven't regretted it.
Damien, sorry, Yossi, but I was going to say I've been nodding constantly and yapping away because like your words so resonate with me, because that's exactly how I felt. And look, I got involved with North Geelong 20 odd years ago, maybe even longer. At the time that Vlado Jakic was involved, he asked me to get involved, and when it was kind of like a bit of a transition of generations. And one of the first things I realized, being the delegate that attended the local association meetings, was that North Geelong, we were seen as kind of like, almost like, the lepers by the rest of it, because we were never around. We never got involved. We didn't really care.
Antichrist. You were the Antichrist.
Yeah. And look, I really, like, I think I took that personally. I really wanted because the main reason I got involved with soccer was the Croatian community. Funny enough, you know. And at the time, I said to Vlad, I'll get involved if North Geelong becomes a bit more Croatian, in the sense that it was more of a community club than just sort of isolated in its own little thing. But we were very isolated in the football community as well. And that was something that I really tried to change. But I was at FFB for 3 years, and I think one of my big things was help all the clubs. And yes, I come from North Geelong, but it didn't matter. It like when I was helping at the time, whatever the club may be, it was like, I'm using all my knowledge and experience to help you because I know the sport is going to develop and benefit, and ultimately my own club will as well. But yeah, from your own people, you had that kind of concept type of thing, you know. But yet I know down in Melbourne we've had Pavi Yusuf, president of Melbourne Knights. He's been on what they call the zone committee. We've had Ivan Didulic, I think, from North Geelong, Johnny's cousin. So there hasn't been too many people. And look, some of these roles are very, very strategically important because they end up voting for, you know, your next board of directors and things like that. And what happens is the Greeks do it, the Italians, the Turks, and whoever else. It's almost like a lobby. They get their own people in, and then they get what they want to get. And we wonder why we're struggling to get, you know, what we want to get from the federations.
But even going back on Johnny and I think Paul's comments earlier when they were talking about when the licenses were up for renewal and they had to apply and everything else, you know, it's always a lot easier if you've got maybe somebody on the inside to not so much influence, but even give you advice, even help you with something. But again, it's a tough question to answer by saying why we don't have more, whether or not, you know, maybe we're just more passionate about our own clubs and not really worry about what's happening in the backyard, and we let other people deal with it. It's hard. It's a hard one. Like you said, we got excellent coaches and players and everything else, and you know, even the odd referees popped up around the place. But from an administrative point of view, we don't. So
I'd love to see more of our community involved in strategic decisions and in getting involved in implementing operational programs. Give us a little bit of an insight about the types of common challenges you face, or common themes that come up on your table.
Not every club needs and wants the same thing is the biggest thing, and then dealing with council. We're dealing with, and again, it goes back to that strategic structure, the infrastructure needs and wants of clubs, and just trying to appease everybody with what they want, whether it's lighting upgrades, whether it's new change rooms, whether it's our fields are shit and we need new turf, and it's just that whole heaps of things coming at you at once. And then when you're dealing from my level at 5 or 6 different councils, even one council's got, so I've got maybe 5 clubs that belong to the Gold Coast City Council who come under one rule. Then the Scenic Rim's got 3 or 4 other clubs that comes under another rule. Then the Tweed Shire Council's another one. So it's just learning to juggle all that political aspect in what they can do and they can't do from a council perspective as well.
So if we look at that in context of someone who's maybe cutting through university and trying to study, you know, that type of policy, procedures, environment, commercial law type environment, they could grind their teeth cut through out of university and be looking for an entry level to come into a place like this, right? Yeah. And they're transferable skills, right? So even if you pick them up in the industry, you can bring them to the table here.
But I never went to university. I keep saying I went to the University of Life, and you know, whether or not. But now I understand that you do need that piece of paper that says this is what I can do and everything else. But for sure, you know, like I worry at times that some of our younger generation, they want to start earning $300,000 a year straight away. So or you want to become the CEO of Football Queensland. So sometimes you need to get into Football Queensland at, you know, starting level and then work your way up. And like I said, there's 70 staff just looking at Football Queensland. There's 70, 80 staff there from basic officers to our CEO and everything in between. So there certainly is a career in sports management. And the advantage is wherever you start, there's a hell of a lot of sport that gets played in Australia. And what I do is no different to any public service, I guess. Whether you're selling fruit or selling drinks behind the bar, it's still engaging with the consumer. It's just I do it with a football, and other people do it with telecom services or a radio program or something like yours. If the people are happy, they come back. If they're not, they'll look for something else.
The message I'm hearing here is if you're passionate about the football and you've got something that you want to offer, bring it forward. Try and get involved in those committees, because then it's an avenue in. I mean, you look at Football Victoria. 15 years ago, they had some guy that was the head of gymnastics come in and run Football Victoria. Yeah. Okay, principles might be similar, but did he have football passion in his heart to make decisions for football?
Well, David Gallup's your perfect example, isn't he? Yeah. David Gallup and I can't think of his name now. The other one from that came over from rugby union, O'Neill.
John O'Neill.
John O'Neill. Yeah. We've had a rugby union bloke and a rugby league bloke trying to run Football Australia, and where did it get us type scenario? So
Ben Buckley later on as well. AFL.
Ben Buckley, you're right. Ben Buckley there. So all right. James Johnson seems to be doing a decent job now, but a football/soccer person that's worked at FIFA that's done his stuff. So
well, the other thing that at the moment there's a real push. And I look, I do deal with parts of Football Victoria still, and I still have got some very good friends there. And being involved with a sister podcast show, Football Out West, and the Geelong Region Soccer Show, I still have a lot of dealings with a lot of people. At football level, at soccer level, there's a real push to get female administrators as well. Now, I know there are some absolutely brilliant female administrators at a lot of our clubs, and in many ways, that old Croatian saying, svaka kuća, there's a woman holds the četvrti stup, whatever. Many of our clubs are very much like that. But, when Josip, yourself and Damien, some of the ladies that have gone on to, academic corporate things, they would be absolutely brilliant in some of these roles. We've seen them come through the clubs. We need that new generation of not just players and coaches, but we need administrators as well.
Well, Gordon is a prime example over at Western Knights, isn't she? She's done a great job over there and continues to do so. But you're right with the female. I know Football Queensland's mantra is they want to get to a 50-50 split on the board as well as administrative level as well, and then pushing that even to on the field surface. I think FIFA. FA wants us to get to a 50-50 split in participation within the next 3 or 4 years. Will that happen? We don't know. But there's a massive push on women's across the board, not just playing, but everywhere.
Yeah. Look,
all right.
Ultimately,
any last questions?
No last questions. I think ultimately what we've displayed here is what we were talked about behind the scenes is we do have the people. They have the brains and the passion. So if you're out there tuning in, whether you watch the YouTube later or tuning in now, you love your football and you want to be able to be part of decision making that drives forward and gets decisions done for the right reasons for football. Get involved in the standing committees. Yeah. And if you're studying areas that involve customer management, government relations, policy procedure type environments, commercial law, there's pathways there for you, and be prepared to do the work at the ground level so that you can reach and aspire to the higher positions.
And even if you're not ready, there are always interns. Football Queensland's always got half a dozen interns that come in and do 2 or 3 days here and there and then learn, which then could help you in the future. Or, you might start as a coaching level and come into a competition management role and then come into something else. So there's opportunities there. But look, it's we just need to try and dispel almost that myth that, it's the other side, it's the dark side. Without the administrators, our clubs aren't there. And unfortunately, I have to enforce laws and things of the game, and which don't make our people happy because, we're a law unto ourselves at times, whether it's throwing a flare, regardless of how many times we have to say you can't do it, you can't do it. So I'll upset heaps of your viewers now, but the only people that it hurts is the club eventually at the end of the day. And then, because they're the rules, you can't do it. But,
Well, Tonchi, we've got an action, mate. We've got an action out of this little AGM we're having here.
Absolutely.
We've got the GM in charge. We've got the AGM. You and I have an action. Every time we get onto a state football body website and we have a look around, our duty, you and I, Tonch, is to go to the careers section, pull out the jobs, and start advertising them out there.
That's right.
Get our people involved.
Absolutely.
We're going to be like sequovash.com.
Yeah, our put of arts that we're going to organise at the Oz Cro Soccer Show. Yes.
And if there's any vacancies coming up at Footy Queensland, Joe, I'll let you know first.
Yeah, Paul, I'll be lining up with my resume in hand.
I might be wanting to leave Victoria like thousands of other people. Who knows?
But I think the only thing we need to do is buy Joe some shoes because he was barefooted last week. I noticed at your thing. So he's doing it again. Good lifestyle up here, Joe.
Fali Puno.
But you want a hard worker, don't you, Damien? You don't want a clochard.
Mate, you can't have two like me. I need somebody to do the work.
Yeah.
I make good coffee, Damien. I make really good coffee.
Good stuff. Damien, absolute pleasure having you. And we look forward to speaking to you again sometime down the track. But you have a good night's sleep and get ready for that big long ride tomorrow. Yeah.
Thank you.
And remember the wine.
Really appreciate it, mate. Good job, and keep up the good work, mate. It's great for us. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Good on you.